What's going on, everybody? We are back. Episode number 217 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight we're talking UFC Kansas City. We got beatdowns and barbecue. Should be a good one. Although I don't know that it's the best betting card, but we will get into that in a little bit. As always, guys, if you like the show, drop a like, subscribe. It would help us out. We'd appreciate it. It would help us grow the following a bit more, do more giveaways, that kind of stuff. Real quick, how about a quick shout out to John Kelly and Fight Numbers? They were sponsoring us for the last few months, but John's kind of shut it down to focus on his real life work. And so we wish John the best of luck there. But again, thanks for helping us out there. And yeah, we hope those guys all find, continued success. And yeah, before we hop into this, we should discuss, the card 2 weeks ago, UFC 314, Miami. I did pretty well. I was up 4 units on the night. First bet, I lost the unit on Haley Cowan, plus 144. Not only did I get reverse CLB'd badly on that fight, Haley Cowan is just the worst ever. Hopefully that's the end of the ride, and I don't bet her again, because I bet her in her last 3 fights, I believe. I had 3.3 units on Sumu Deraji, minus 165. Perplexing split. He outlanded Raposo 45-8 in significant strikes, 70-13 in total strikes. Didn't really get held down at all, but yeah, I think it was a pretty good bet in spite of the split decision. But whatever. I had 2 units, Dominic Reyes plus 150. Obviously, he took care of Krylov quickly. So happy about it. Unfortunately, I bet the Nazi. Didn't work out. Yep. All I have to live with is the shame of making that bet. I had 3 units on Bryce Mitchell at an average of about plus 232 there. Then I had 3.84 units on Alex Volkanovski, minus 128. I think it was a pretty good bet. I was extremely surprised at how well the cardio of Diego Lopez held up in that fight and how well the pace did. But, I think I shouldn't say when as expected, but Volkanovski was as potent and defensively effective as expected. He's just a much better fighter. So, yeah, 4-unit win for me. How'd you do, Danny?
Honestly, it was kind of a frustrating night because, I thought moneyline-wise, outside of Bryce, I thought my reads were good. Had both Verna and Volk. But then, got a bit cute with props. So I had the Hooper fight doesn't go the distance parlay, which to be honest, if Hooper wasn't chasing, the kind of just...
I can't hear you right now. I don't know if I just lost you. Keep talking. No, my audio should be good. I lost your audio. All right, Lag's bouncing back out for a second, so we'll come back to him in a minute. But yeah, it was a fun card. Miami cards always tend to be pretty fun. So yeah, happy to get out there, get cash. Had a nice little cash on PFL last week as well. Had Fabian Edwards and Aaron Jeffrey. I'm going to try to get back to doing the PFL shows. We got another one next week, so going to try to get through that this week and hopefully, get a show out there for that as well. But yeah, I'm pumped about this card. The funny thing is, as of right now, I don't have any bets. I probably going to make 1 or 2 moneyline bets. I like a bunch of totals, but yeah, we'll get into it. Lags is back now. I'll let him finish what he was going through. All right, there you go. I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was kind of a frustrating night because I thought outside of the Bryce Mitchell moneyline play I had, I thought my reads on both Volk and Verna were good. Then I kind of just got cute a bit on the prop side. So I had the Hooper fight doesn't go the distance parlayed up. And I thought if he wasn't chasing those kind of just weird meme subs that he was, I think he probably could have got Miller out of there in the second or third rounds. But is what it is. And then the other half of that parlay was the Krylov-Reyes fight. Didn't go the distance, which obviously great bet. But parlay ends up coming down. And then I had a small sprinkle on that Hooper-Miller fight. Ends in KO, which, again, to my point, if wasn't going for those subs, nice big number there, but end up break even on the night. So a bit frustrating.
Yeah. Well, better than losing. But yeah, we'll jump into this. I was just saying it while you were offline. I don't have anything thus far. I have 2 spots I'm kind of looking at and a bunch of totals I'm looking at, but it's been a lot of line movement in the last couple of days. But yeah, we'll jump into it. First fight of the night, Jocelyn Edwards. She's minus 280, taking on Chelsea Chandler, who's plus 240. I don't really have a strong opinion on this fight. Chelsea Chandler, I guess my initial thought was, maybe I'd bet her because she's big and physical, but I don't know. It's one of those built like Tarzan, fights like Jane type of scenarios, I fear, where, Chandler really just can't stop takedowns on the feet. She is very, very defensively void. Not the best volume. Edwards, pretty meat and potatoes. Not really a fan of her game, but she should be able to get takedowns with I think relative ease. And even on the feed, I trust Edwards to kind of play the outside game, throw volume, land better, defend better. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a big number, but ultimately, I think given the grappling upside, I think the price is fine. How about you?
Yeah, no, similar. Honestly, like it's one, like, pre-tape, it's obviously like, oh, well, Edwards a huge chalk. It's like you never want to do business with. And obviously, I'm not looking to bet her here, but it's like she has huge advantages both in the grappling and the striking. Like, again, huge reach advantage. Really just going to be touching up Chandler. I think it will on the feet. And yeah, easy takedowns in my opinion.
Yeah, moving on. We got Timothy Kuwamba taking out Roberto Romero. Romero minus 118. The comeback on Kuwamba minus 102. Romero coming off a surprising debut in that I think he competed a lot harder than the line indicated. He was plus 500 against David Oama there. And Timothy Kuwamba coming off so far, what I would say is a disappointing performance as a favorite on the Contender Series, a disappointing performance as a dog in his debut, and a disappointing performance as a favorite in his last fight. What do you think here? Do you think Kuwamba gets right, or do you think Romero picks up his first UFC win?
So it's an interesting one because Kuwamba, for sure, at least in my opinion, is more technically advanced of the two. But Romero is going to come forward, going to throw more volume. Just, again, going to be doing more in the fight. Yeah. Got better cardio, I think, too. I mean, it's probably comparable. To me, though, it's weird that watching Romero's like regional tape and even, his fight with Oama, though he had that early success, it's like the guy just kind of looks to grapple afterwards, doesn't have fight like a plan A really. Just looking, again, like I said, looking to come forward, throw that volume, and that might just be enough against Kuwamba. But I think Tim has I think again he has the tools to do it. Just stick and move on the outside, probably better technically, but it seems like a coin flip of a fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kuwamba is just flat out better, but I share a lot of your concerns. He feels like the kind of guy to me that, when he's having success, he fights with a lot of confidence. Like you look at the early portion of his fight with Mateo Vogel on Contender Series, and he was moving slick, making him miss, landing counters. And then as Vogel started to land strikes and land leg kicks, his volume just fell off a cliff. Same thing basically happened from the jump with Almeida. Yeah, I think Kuwamba is a much better wrestler than Romero, but I don't really trust Kuwamba to do much if he gets on top. I go back and watch that fight with Oki, and when he had Oki down in round 2, I felt like he had ample opportunity to advance there and really get to dominant positions, and he seemed kind of like flustered in terms of what to do. The striking, I'm with you. I think a lot of that Romero-Oama fight was a bit of a flash in the pan. I think he came at Oama a bit harder than Oama was expecting, kind of caught him off balance and hurt him. And the truth is...
Well, on top of the fact, too, I think it's also to the point that, Oama is pretty defensively void as well. So, him getting cracked by a guy who has some power, not out of the realm of possibility. Yeah,
I agree. And I totally agree. And we're going to talk about him on this card as well. But, the truth of the matter is that fight wasn't really all that competitive other than, first knockdown. Oama had a really good first 90 seconds, and then Romero kind of caught him, knocked him down. And then once Oama got his bearings back, he kind of just beat him up the rest of the way. But, yeah, I look at the fight, and I feel Kuwamba has every tool to really win this fight firm. But what I question is, does he have the tools to... what could the best case scenario, possible hindsight, Kuwamba line be here? Minus 150?
Right. And even then it's or even to push that or even go higher, you would have to think he has significant top time, which I'm really not there.
He might. I'm pretty skeptical because I don't really love his grappling. But the issue is I think he's the better striker and I think he's the better grappler. But given how we know Romero is going to go forward and throw a lot of strikes. And we know Kuwamba is going to circle and just look to pick his shots. Now, I think he'll pick better shots, but I also think he's probably going to get outlanded. So, yeah, I mean, look, I could not bet Romero just purely off the fact that I think his overperformance against Oama is probably getting him more respect than maybe he would otherwise deserve. But I also just feel like Kuwamba's not that big of a finishing threat, and minute to minute, he just doesn't give himself a chance to dominate fights. So,
He's a thin margins guy.
Yeah, very. Like, I would, if it got to like plus 115, plus 120 Kuwamba, I think that would be enough for me to be willing to take a shot at it. But it's not even really a step up. I mean, it's a step up in competition for Romero versus the guys he was beating on Combate, but I don't think Kuwamba, it's not like you're getting a UFC vet who's got like 10 fights and 3 or 4 UFC wins here, right? He's got 2 wins. He's got 2 fights in the UFC, and he didn't look particularly good in either of them. So, yeah, maybe he'll look better in a step down here. We'll see, but I'm okay with passing. Moving on, we have a silly fight here. Jacqueline Amarim. She's minus 800. The comeback on Polyana Viana is plus 550. It's funny because I was like looking at it like last week or 2 weeks ago maybe, and I was like, man, Amarim minus 350. There might be some value there, but I passed, and now she's minus 800. Thank you, Dogfather, for telling me my camera is blurry. Yeah, I could put up a fake background. If you guys want the living room, you guys want the fake living room?
Piano, come on, John.
They want the piano. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe it's a little wide. I do think Viana getting subbed and finished in her last 2 fights is probably giving Amarim a bit more respect, given she's a grappler, than maybe she otherwise deserves. But we know what Viana's going to do. She's going to keel over to her back the first time she gets taken down. She is going to try to throw up subs against a better grappler with better jiu-jitsu. She's probably going to get her guard passed. If they're standing, Viana's going to beat her up. But, like, has Polyana Viana shown any inclination to defend takedowns in the UFC yet? Not really. And we saw, if Amarim can get the top position even tired, she tends to do fine. So, yeah, if I was going to play anything on it, maybe just look to play the goes the distance and play the big dog money, just because Viana is a black belt. It's not like she's going to get subbed every time she fights a good submission grappler.
Yeah.
But I have no interest in this fight. I mean, Amarim should roll. I'm assuming you agree with me.
Yeah, and I have no interest, and it's hard to even be confident in a total if you were looking from an under perspective, because we're talking about a huge chalked under 2.5 here, and under you mentioned.
Yeah, even Amarim by submission is minus 150. I'd be more interested in the Amarim KO if I was going to take anything, than a sub here. I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jillian KO'd Viana, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, we'll see. Moving on, though. Yeah, I mean, Justin Baby said, and I don't disagree with respect to the Kuwamba fight. I mean, Kuwamba is a counter guy, and, probably a bit easier with an aggressive guy like Romero. But we'll see. Moving on, though, we got Cameron Simon taking on Malcolm Wellmaker. Cameron Simon coming off one of the most hellacious beatings I've ever seen in the bantamweight division against Peyton Talbot. Wellmaker coming off the Contender Series, pretty sick highlight reel knockout. He's making his debut here. The price currently is Wellmaker minus 116. The comeback on Simon minus 104. What do you think, Legs?
So I think we're going to have some differing opinions based on what we chatted about earlier. But personally, to me, I think it comes down to the hitability of Cameron Simon, and I just feel like Malcolm is going to be able to find those shots. And, the other big talking point I would say, too, I mean, Malcolm's strength schedule, not the best. Hasn't really fought the greatest guy. So, listen, it's a huge step up for sure. I'm not looking to lay the price, Malcolm, even though he's just a slight favorite. But I think he is going to have those opportunities on the feet.
Yeah, I am going to probably eventually bet Cameron here. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe Wellmaker, because I do think he does some things well, no pun intended.
Well,
yeah. He's got good counters, like good check hook, nice counter overhand, and obviously he put Bromhalder out cold with in his last fight. He's reasonably athletic, good movement, good jab. What I don't like about him, though, is there's a few things. First of all, I'm going to go a little narrative heavy here on you. Yeah, I do it awesome.
No, go for it.
But in Malcolm Wellmaker, you have a guy who's 30. That's fine, whatever. But 30-year-old fighter who didn't start fighting until 7 years ago. He's a professional welder, which I have nothing wrong with. It's a great career. But that's actually kind of my point here. He's 30. He's a full-time welder. He's certainly not giving up a job that's probably paying him 1 to 200K a year to go get punched in the face for a living, or I'd be surprised if he is anyway. And he's taking on a guy in Simon who's 24, who's got more experience, who's fought better guys, and who trains full time and just had a year off, who I think we'd be reasonably expecting to get better. And in terms of how he fights, I feel like Malcolm fights like he's not bad. Like I said, good jab, good counters, but he fights kind of like a welterweight or a middleweight. And by that I mean like he's low volume, he's not particularly assertive, he's not a great grappler. Like I don't think he's a terrible grappler, but he can get taken down. I don't think he's much of an offensive grappler. And when you think about the power, like I know it's easy to look at the Bromhalder fight and look at how he stiffed him the way he did. And it was a sick KO, like highlight reel KO and whatnot. But he only had, 4 KOs, including that one regionally. Most of those fights, I'm watching it, it's not like guys are like shaking from impact from him. So I'm not saying he's not a big hitter, but I don't think you're talking about a guy like a Davison or like a Cody Garbrandt type hitter at all here, or even a Peyton Talbot type hitter, personally. I think he's got good power for the division, but he's got good power in a division where the average fight, where 74% of fights don't end by KO, And he's fighting a guy in Simon who I know the optics of his last fight were horrific. Yeah. Obviously, he got hurt by a couple savage knees and then put down violently early in round 2 in that fight. But like we've seen Cameron Simon show really good durability throughout his career so far. He fought Joshua and Kim, dealt with his shots fine. Mana Martinez, and some people might laugh at that because Mana wasn't didn't knock out anybody in the UFC, but Mana knocked out Jose Johnson. He knocked out Ricky Tercios. He had an 80% of his wins have come by knockout. He was a guy who was known for having, frankly, more power than Malcolm Wellmaker is known for having coming into the UFC. And he dealt with his shots, just fine. Could he get knocked out here? Yeah. Could he get hurt by the counters? Of course. But I'm expecting we're going to get a bit better of a version of Simon in this fight. I think, it's going to be a moments versus minutes type fight. But my view is Wellmaker's moment upside is getting a bit overrated because of, that last knockout. And I do think, he'll probably land some hard counters in this fight. Is he going to be wobbling Simon all over the octagon like Peyton Talbot did? I doubt it. I think he could hurt him a couple times, maybe finish him, but I don't think he's going to be, hurting him every time he touches him. Nothing about Malcolm Wellmaker's game makes me think he has the death touch, and this is a guy who's about to knock out 5 or 6 guys at bantamweight. On top of which, I look at how Wellmaker, he is slick, but defensively, he's a bit void. He exits the pocket hands down all the time, and the guys he was fighting regionally weren't really good enough to capitalize on that. But you look at how Simon strings his kicks together, puts them behind his punches, and I think there's going to be room for some head kicks in there, here and there. I think he's going to get off a lot of volume against Wellmaker. So yeah, I think it's a competitive fight. I understand it being lined pretty closely, but I also feel like Simon's volume is much more reliable than Wellmaker's power is. And I do think Simon could get a couple takedowns here and there. Simon had semi-significant grappling success against Christian Rodriguez. So we'll see. I'm inclined to lean on, I think he should be in the minus 130 range here personally. I'm hoping it flips back to dog. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But what was that?
Stop that?
Yeah, sure. That's fine. It's just about pick him right now, so I'll take it. Moving on, though, we got Damon Blackshere taking on Haley Alateng. Current price, Blackshere minus 460. The comeback on Alateng plus 360. What are your thoughts here? I don't have a lot to say on this fight.
I don't either, and I'll more or less. I think Blackshere's pretty much a free square this week. I think he has huge grappling upside over highly wrestle boxer. Obviously has decent power in that right hand, but pretty low volume. And in terms of his defensive wrestling, we've seen it. It's not the best.
Yeah, I wanted to bet Blackshere, but similar to a few other spots on this card, I missed the move on it. I don't have any interest in minus 450. Yeah, the issue is Blackshere is the better grappler. Haley could knock him out, but the volume gap on the feet is just gigantic. So is the size gap. I feel like a Haley knockout's very low percentage. And yeah, so I think Blackshere should win the fight just fine. I'll tell you what I am interested in. I think the over 2.5 and the goes the distance are both kind of interesting to me at minus 150. I feel like I don't think Blackshere is really at all likely to knock out Haley, and I don't think Haley is at all likely to knock him out. So you're kind of banking on a Blackshere sub. What?
I said you're fading a Blackshere sub, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think Blackshere is like a lock to get takedowns here. And if he does get takedowns, I don't think he's a lock to get to dominant positions and sub him. To me, I feel like a large portion of the finishing equity is Blackshere sub. I just think it's being overpriced here. I mean, I know he finished Cody Gibson's corpse, but like Haley's way stronger. He's got better hips. He comes from a wrestling background. Hasn't historically been an easy guy to finish. So, yeah, I kind of like the over. Moving on, we're talking about a fight that we talked about before. Line is a bit different this time, though. We got Chris Gutierrez. He's minus 140. Come back on John Castanada, plus 120. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, friend of the show, Luke Lampy, fighting this weekend. No, honestly, it's an interesting one to me because Gutierrez is obviously a huge thin margins guy. Like, he's never going to blow anybody out of the water. His, again, finishing upside is pretty much non-existent. Though on the Castaneda side, you're more or less banking on takedowns here, which I don't think are going to be coming super easy. So, like, I kind of get a pick'em line, and I think people could make arguments for both sides. Again, the grappling for Castaneda, the leg kicks for Gutierrez, keeping it standing. But I would side more on the Gutierrez side.
I don't feel super strong about it. I just feel like I think Castaneda's wrestling is a bit overrated. But having said that, I mean, he could get a bunch of top time if he gets Gutierrez down. So I suppose there is a fair amount of upside there. But like on the feet, I just think Gutierrez is much better. Like, yeah, Castaneda has a lot better boxing, but he's not very assertive with it. You know, he doesn't have a lot of power. He doesn't, I don't think, cut the cage off particularly well. Like, I feel like Gutierrez is going to be able to outmaneuver him a fair amount. Obviously, Castaneda pretty susceptible to leg kicks, which is kind of the Chris Gutierrez specialty. I could not bet Gutierrez at this price against a guy like Castaneda with his grappling, but I don't know, between the fact that Castaneda, I don't think is that great an athlete and doesn't close distance that well, and the fact that, what is his third time this has been booked, and Castaneda's like had to pull out twice now.
Yeah.
Like, we know he was sick last time. I just don't have really much interest in him.
Not to mention, which I think is an interesting talking point that probably nobody's mentioning, Gutierrez, or I think it was Castaneda, actually posted pictures. They were training together like a year ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, they probably know who's going to win this fight. But
GTD's a lock, John.
Minus 350. If you bet GTD, you realize Castaneda is going to be on one leg like 3 minutes into this fight.
Yes, and then
that is how it'll go.
Last 12 and a half minutes. Yeah, 100%.
Moving on, we got Evan Elder taking on Gage Young. Gage Young filling in for Ahmad Hassanzada, who is no longer at the promotion after being arrested for.
And never will be.
Nope, will never be at the promotion. Probably going to go to prison for assaulting a minor under 14. Not great.
Already is. So.
Yeah. But I'm saying he will probably be convicted and end up in prison for a long period of time. It's not great. But Gage Young, on the other hand, I actually think this is a much more compelling fight. I'm a fan of Gage Young. I bet him on Contender Series. Current price, Elders minus 190. Come back on Young plus 165. It's another one. I was kind of interested in Young in the plus 210 price. Not really so much at the current price. I think it's a mirror match of sorts. I think Elder's a bit better and a bit more seasoned. Obviously, he's had more fights, or more high-level fights, I should say. I think he's a bit cleaner of a boxer. I think his volume is a tad bit more reliable. But having said that, Young's a decent boxer himself. He's very fast. He hits very, very hard. He pressures pretty effectively. I think he's got a slight wrestling edge. I don't know. I expect the fight's going to play pretty competitively. I guess where I'd give the most credence to Elder is just the experience, it being a short notice debut for Young in front of a live crowd in Kansas City. Elder's obviously had a full camp here, and I think Elders knows how to deal with adversity a bit better than Young knows how to in his career at this point. But I do think Young has more finishing equity in this fight. It's similar, but I think he's got more room for moments and KOs. I do think he might be a bit more durable than Elder. And I will say, if he was like planning for this fight for a while, or it wasn't his debut, I'd be a lot more interested in him, because the way Elder didn't really separate from Genaro Valdez until the third round kind of like spooks me a bit, even against like Flowers, man. The first 3 minutes of that fight were pretty competitive until Darius Flowers did what Darius Flowers does, which is just like turbo gas. But yeah, I mean, I think Young is very, very live here. I think he's live to hurt or finish Elder, but I do think Elder's a deserved like small to moderate favorite just since, he is experienced. He's obviously had striking success against much better fighters than Young has. What do you think?
But he had a fight booked, right?
Yeah, for next week. But it's also like now he's stepping in against a different style in the big cage in Kansas City.
In the UFC, yeah.
Yeah.
So I see it similar to you in terms of like Elder is just, again, a bit of a mirror match, higher volume. But I think not that Gage doesn't have a wrestling upside, like to your point, but I don't think he's going to be able to hold him down. Like I think Elder's competent enough in the defensive wrestling realm. I think Elder should be able to land more volume here, keep the fight standing. Yeah, short and simple.
Yeah. Moving on, we got a battle of two men who have both retired in the recent past. We got Matt Schnell taking on Jimmy the Brick Flick. Current price, Schnell minus 250. The comeback on Flick, plus 211. I mean, Matt Schnell's got historically poor takedown defense. Jimmy can get takedowns. Matt Schnell has a tendency to put himself in chokes. Jimmy's a pretty good choke specialist. Having said that, I think Schnell should beat his ass with very little difficulty, personally.
Yeah, no,
what was that?
No, I said I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Flick gets easy takedowns, but I'd be surprised. He has no real burst in his takedowns. He doesn't drive through them very well. He's not much of an athlete. It's the first fight Schnell's had in God knows how many years where there wasn't like a materially large KO threat in front of him. Obviously, he's got a huge reach edge. He's got a huge boxing edge. He's got a huge speed edge, a huge power edge. Yeah, I mean, look, I won't be surprised if Schnell finds a way to fumble it. He is like one of the all-time fumblers. But I do think he is like Matt Schnell's been fighting like top 10 guys for like 5 years. And I know there's a tendency to be like, it's Matt Schnell, like Jimmy Flick can win. No, we just had that fight with Jimmy Flick. His name was Malcolm Gordon. And he looked dire in that fight, by the way. Like horrible. Am I going to lay minus 250 on Schnell? Probably not. But I do think he should be fine. Like I have in no way tempted to bet Flick. What I am tempted to bet, I do like the over 1.5 here. Because I don't think Schnell hits all that hard, and I could see Flick kind of like, dogging his way through a round or two. And I honestly kind of like the GTD at plus 275. Like, I think there's a broad minus 140. I think it's pretty good. I think the GTD at plus 275 is pretty good, to be honest. I feel like I don't want to say more finishing equity is in the Flick corner, but like Schnell doesn't drop many guys. Like I know it's Flick. But like Flick survived for a bit with Alessandro Costa. He survived for a bit with Charles Johnson. He made it to a decision with Nate Manis. Why can't he survive with Matt Schnell? And honestly, if Flick gets on top of him, I know Schnell's been subbed a bunch, but most of Schnell's like, subs come from front chokes where he just takes a reckless shot and gets caught. The guy's a black belt. He should be able to survive if Flick's chest to chest with him for a while, I think. So, yeah, I like this fight to go long. What do you think?
Well, of course, as you were asking me about it, I cut out and we had a nice little lag there, so that was nice. But I was saying I completely agree with you. And that, I think Schnell should be a huge favorite. Like I've seen a lot of takes like, oh man, Schnell's got the worst chin of the two in this matchup. It's like it's Jimmy Flick. Do we know who we're talking about here? I mean
maybe this will be the time Jimmy Flick secures his first career KO. It's not impossible.
No shot.
I wouldn't say no shot, but I think it's low percentage.
I'll do one for the pod here. If Jimmy Flick gets a knockout, Four Loko. We're chugging the Four Loko before next pod.
I am not chugging a Four Loko.
I will.
Okay, you can do that.
How about thoroughly finish through maybe the first couple fights. Won't be milking it.
Okay.
But no, I think Schnell handles business there. Huge boxing edge, and I like the over 1.5. I'm not super passionate about that GTD though.
Dude, also in the same vein, like Flick's submission is barely better than his money line. Like if you like Flick, why not just take or I shouldn't say if you like him, bet the money line. But like of all of his props, by decision at plus 900 seems much, much better than submission plus 225 when there's like plus 215. There's even, nah, it's my bookie, that's fake. But there are plus like 215s out there right now, plus 225 at Bet Rivers. Like that's crazy.
Yep.
Moving on, we got oh god, I think we've broken this fight down like 3 times too. We've got Ikram Maliscarov.
Need to be rebooked.
What was that?
So this is one that didn't need to be rebooked.
No. Ikram Maliscarov, Andre Muniz, current price, Maliscarov minus 500. Come back on Muniz plus 375. I feel as if take the tiniest of pokes on Muniz sub 1 and just have nothing else to do with it. I mean, let's just take a look at the Maliscarov props. Like everything is fucking turbo juiced here. Over 1.5 is not a bad look. I mean, fading the Maliscarov power narrative, I don't think is the worst idea ever. Yeah. And Muniz is usually good for about 5 to 7 minutes of good physicality and athleticism. You know, actually, I like that a lot. I didn't even see that minus 125. That's kind of attractive.
How about it?
I could fuck with that. I mean, of course, I'm sure Maliscarov's going to run over him, but minus 175 for Maliscarov KO. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to give a breakdown here. We know the deal. Muniz maybe live for a sub in the first 3 or 4 minutes of this fight. Right. Otherwise, he's going to get dumpstered by the better wrestler, better striker, better boxer, whatever. Do you have much different to say?
Nope, completely agree.
Yep. Wish we could get some more dramatics in here, but just not fitting into the not fitting in tonight.
That's the thing. We've been sorry to cut you off there. I know we've been doing the pod for like a couple years now, but that's the thing I want to try to improve on is at least myself talking a little more. But it's tough with this card we got here, some of the fights we got here.
Yeah, especially this one. I think this one, Jacqueline Amarim, and Blackshere. Not a lot to say.
Yes,
not a lot. But moving on, cool fight here. I do not have the strongest of opinions. We've got Randy Brown minus 250. The comeback on Nick Dobby plus 210. What are your thoughts?
This is Brown Dobby, right?
Yeah.
This to me, it's Dobby or Pat.
Legs is frozen. Anybody else see legs frozen?
Just because most of the huge length on the feet, big volume as well. It's always going to be pretty competitive. It's kind of spot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, guys, is legs cutting out for you in the chat if you can hear in here? I just want to make sure it's not me.
Sorry. Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. It's Dobby or pass for me, just because I feel like Dobby can make it like a gritty fight. Like I could see why Brown would be a huge favorite. I think he has most of the finishing upside on the feet. Again, huge guy, big volume edge as well. But like, does Brown really ever cover these huge tags ever? Like he's always having a close fights, probably losing a round or so in doing so. Dobby, great cardio, high pace himself. Like I could see him getting dinged a few times at range, but I could see it being pretty competitive at the same token. So it's Dobby or pass for me.
Yeah, I think the line's fine. I feel like Dobby's style is one that like could give Randy Brown some trouble historically. We kind of saw a version of it last fight against Brian Battle, but obviously Brian Battle is considerably better than Nick Dobby at this point in his career and much more physical. Yeah. But that kind of clinch him up, dirty box type of thing Dobby likes to do. I could see having some success with Brown, but Brown's going to probably be tough to clinch up because he's so much bigger than him. At space, Brown is just way, way better. I honestly sort of have the feeling like Brown's going to be the guy that puts Dobby down, but I mean, he's 40 and he is hittable. It's probably very, very overdue. Like no one's done it since Jesse Ronson on steroids way back in the day. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Dobby could make it close, but I don't really see a path here where it's not close in a Dobby win. Like I think Dobby's got very little finishing equity, whereas I can easily picture Brown finishing him. I can picture Brown winning and outlanding him in the clinch. I can also just picture Brown being able to disengage easy because he's so much longer and landing like heavy shots at space. And I think Brown could be like live for back takes if Dobby engages the grappling and stuff too hard. So plus Dobby's 40. Like one of these fights, it's going to break for Dobby. We don't know when. He's held up shockingly well, but it's going to happen sooner than later at 170. I don't really want to get in front of that. I think Brown probably does fine. Minus 250, no real interest though, and no real interest on props here. Moving on, another line I got kind of fucking cucked on while I was waiting to take it. We got Michelle Pereira taking on Abus Magomedov. Current price, Pereira minus 132, Magomedov plus 112. I think the price is right-ish. I would maybe lean Magomedov at plus 112. I would have taken him at plus 130 or better, but I thought it might go the other way. It did not. Here we are. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mirror match of sorts. I shouldn't say mirror match, but they both do similar stuff, precise strikers, both like to counter a bit, both have really, really strong front kicks, both pretty bad cardio, both have decent power. I kind of think, Pereira, especially early, is the much more live of the two to find a KO, just since I don't think he hits harder, but I think Abbas is a lot more fragile than Pereira is. But having said that, I also feel like, Pereira hasn't really fought many decent fighters at 185 other than Fluffy. Like, you look at his run, and it's like Gutierrez, who he, like, drops on the first shot and then guillotines. Petrosky knocks out in the first minute. Again, dude can't strike. And then, like, look, the Ola Sajak fight was a good performance, but he melted into the body, and everybody that hits Ola Sajak in the body hurts him there. Like, I bet him because of that in that fight. So now he's fighting a real striker at 185, and I don't think it's going to be as easy as just running through him in the first minute. I think Abbas can land a lot of kicks to the body himself here, which could tax Pereira potentially more. And then obviously there's the potential Abbas could get on top of him. I think Pereira is pretty bad when he's grounded, and Abbas is pretty good on top. But I also just don't think Abbas is going to get that many takedowns, if any, because Pereira's got really, really good hips, really, really good reflexes. So, yeah, I mean, I would make Pereira the smallest of favorites. I do think, the Abbas potential grappling path could help him a bit here if he's able to secure takedowns. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think it'll probably slow to a crawl on the back half of the fight as they both start to get tired. But, yeah, it should be fun. I leaned Abbas earlier in the week. Now I think it's about right. What do you think?
I actually like Michelle Pereira now that the line's coming in, and I was actually looking to play him for like a unit and a half personally. Like, I think, to your point about Michelle, like having the early KO upside, like, again, totally agree there. But the other thing too, though, like, to me, I think that's where Abbas is going to be his strongest as well, and that's kind of where he just tails off afterwards. Like, I think outside of those first 5 minutes, I think Abbas is really going to be cooked in this kind of a fight, personally. I think Michelle's got way more finishing upside. I think his cardio really isn't, I mean, obviously it's pretty, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Not pretty bad. It's bad. I get it. But, I think Abbas' cardio is way worse. I think the guy's just an awful nail. It's hard to get that out of my mind, personally. And so at a close pick'em fight, give me Michelle Pereira.
Fair enough. And I get it. Like, I'm not, like, a huge Abbas fan. I just feel like, yeah, I mean, I'm not betting it at this price. So right. It's immaterial.
Wrestling upside, too, because I think that's where a lot of his credence would come into play. And, maybe he lands a takedown or two, but
I think if he gets takedowns, it's a lot more likely to be while they're both tired than it is to be in is it Abbas, or Abbas? I have no fucking idea.
I think it's
what is it?
Abbas.
What's like Abu Supian or something? I don't fucking know, man. He's like a Dagestani German. It's like the weirdest shit in the world. I don't know. Moving on, we got Giga Chicads taking on David Oama. Current price, Oama minus 162. The comeback on Chicads plus 142. Any interest in the dog Chicads here?
No, just because I feel like, again, similar to Abbas in a sense that like his best round is going to be early in this fight. And like maybe he has a moment, maybe he drops Oama, like again, similar to that Romero fight. But I think the later this fight goes, it's really going to favor Oama, both in the cardio, the grappling. The guys are super hittable, and that's why I'm not looking to like lay a big chalk price tag. But I think Oama live's definitely the better option for sure.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't even agree about the live just because like I feel like these kind of fights that shit's like so priced in already because everybody knows the kind of cardio dynamic. Like I've said it before, but I feel the last like 12 to 18 months we've stopped getting, obviously like, there's plenty of live advantages, but the obvious ones have been priced a lot better than they have been traditionally. Mm-hmm. But I feel if you like Giga here, like KO 1-2 is probably like the best way to look at it. Like he's like plus 1200 KO 1, and
Oh, yeah.
I like Oama as a fighter, but I think he's got good attributes. He's very athletic, great pace, good cardio. I don't think he's the most durable guy in the world, though, man. Like he's been hurt a bunch. He hasn't been. Has he been knocked out? Not yet. I don't
No.
believe. No, but he's been hurt. I mean, Gabe Santos hurt him a few times. Gabe
When,
Benitez hurt him. Obviously, Romero in his last fight hurt him. Giga surely could hurt him and knock him out. That really would not shock me at all in this fight. Having said that, look, Giga's the better striker in this matchup, but I think Oama has a lot more tools to really mix up the fight. I think we both feel, and I think anybody reasonable, I shouldn't say anybody reasonable. Like I could see it being low volume if Oama gets deterred by Giga's firepower, and maybe that allows Giga to coast a bit more than usual. But I feel Oama can change up the game plan much more than Giga's capable of changing it up in this particular matchup. Like Giga is pretty much going to take what Oama gives him, and that's it. Oama could try to grapple. I don't think it would be easy early, but he can try. He can wear on him in the clinch. He can just force a much higher pace. I feel with that dynamic, Oama, I don't want to say is a near lock to win round 3, but I think you have to favor him fairly significantly. Whereas I probably favor Giga round 1, but I think it's competitive, like pretty competitive. And I think it probably gets worse from there. Even in terms of finishing upside, I think Giga could catch him. But man, like Giga's 37 years old. He's never really taken shots well. He's still, I think, kind of a fish on the mat. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I do want to give Giga some credit here because like he did beat Alex Caceres like a couple fights ago. I think he performed admirably against Arnold Allen, who's like a top 5 guy in the division. I kind of like the under, honestly. That's kind of how I feel about it because I do think, kind of to James saying in there, don't get caught, GTD. I agree. Like I could see Oama subbing Giga in this fight, to be honest. I could also see either of them knocking the other out in it. I think, look, if Oama gets scared off, then Giga's probably giant value and should even be a favorite here. But we haven't really seen Oama get scared off by literally anybody. Like Gabe Santos is a threatening and imposing fighter, and he was biting the mouthpiece with him. So I like the under here. I think the line is probably right. It's just hard to get behind Giga at this point. And speaking of guys that's hard to get behind, we have Anthony Smith against Ming Yang Zhang here. It's Ming Yang Zhang minus 500. The comeback on Smith is plus 375. I mean, I have no interest in betting Anthony Smith. It's such a weird fight because it is the kind of fight where it's like, if Ming Yang Zhang doesn't finish him, it probably gets fucking sweaty for him on the back end of the fight.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to finish him. Honestly.
It's hard not, John, it's hard not to see that. And I totally agree with you, too, because, like, this is, like, the level of competition that, like, Smith could beat, theoretically.
Yeah.
Zhang's not that good. I mean, all of his wins are in the first round. The guy's got pretty decent power. But, like, huge holes as a defensive wrestler, there. Cardio awful as well. Like Smith has a path theoretically, but it's very minute outside of this first 5. Well, I shouldn't say it's minute before the fight. After this first 5, it's way larger.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like, I can't get the Reyes fight out of my head or the Deleeds fight. He's looked so fucking bad in the his last 2 performances, and even the Petrino fight. Like he guillotined him, but he looked horrid in that fight. He looked horrid against Roundtree. The dude is beyond washed at this point, and obviously Zhang's got a ton of firepower. I think if you wanted to like play something Smith, maybe take a shot at his sub. Like if he does come out and approach this like the Reyes fight, maybe he gets a takedown and gets on top of him and subs him. Like crazier shit has happened, but I don't have any interest in getting involved. I mean, the under is minus 200. Given that Zhang is minus 500 and the guy's basically only ever won in round 1, I don't really see any reason to, want to bet the over here. So, yeah, no interest here for me. I think Zhang takes care of business. And that brings us to the main event. And this is a good main event. It is the best one we've had in a minute. We got Ian Garry minus 131. Come back on Carlos Prates plus a 111. What are your thoughts here?
Well, to be fair, we just had Volkanovski Lopez. So, I mean, come on.
Yeah, but I mean, that's fair. It was a good fight.
Come on, John. I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean in terms of like caliber of, skill of the fighters.
Yeah.
And I side more with Garry here. Like, Prates definitely has the higher finishing upside of the two. But, like, I think Garry can stay safe on the feet. I think he can mix in the wrestling. I don't think it's going to be super easy to be able to take down Prates, but definitely has the capability of doing so. Obviously has the grappling submission upside, I would say, in the fight as well. To me, I think it's just the minute winner versus the moment winner, really. And I favor the minute winner in Garry.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's interesting. I don't know if I like Garry more or... Again, it's another one where I kind of like goes the distance on it, and I kind of like the over. Garry...
That's the thing, though. If you like goes the distance, I mean, not to say that you like...
goes the distance is plus 175.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, like, if you like GTD, then, like, I would think you also like Garry. Obviously, like, prices are totally different.
I lean that way. I will say, the thing that scares me a bit with Garry is that, obviously, Prates is... throws very violently, and Garry tends to be much more of a touch and go fighter, whereas Prates, he wants to sit down and throw hammers. And like James said, has Prates ever gone 5? I don't believe so. I honestly think the cardio stuff's overblown. Maybe it'll be bad on the back end, but I don't think, Prates is a pretty deliberate fighter, and Garry is also, like I said, like pretty risk off. Like he's not going to take a lot of chances and like push a big pace. So I kind of think it's going to be a slower paced main event. So I don't think Prates' cardio comes into play too much. What I think does come into play, though, is like Garry is a very, very smart fighter. And Prates is much more of I don't want to call him a berserker. I think that's unfair to him, but he is very much I want to get in the pocket and throw hands. And he has had some issues with guys who have moved on him. I mean, Prates is getting outlanded or about attempted by 2 significant strikes at a minute. He's been outlanded a distance for his career thus far in the UFC compared to Garry, who out-attempts his opponents by 4 significant strikes a minute and outlands his opponents by about 2.5 significant strikes a minute. And obviously, Garry's fought the superior level of competition of the two. So that seems like pretty relevant insofar as stats go. But look, Prates is dangerous enough to put him out. I feel like Prates is coming in with a lot of hype here, knocking out Li Jingliang, who's, washed, and knocking out Neil Magny. Yeah. And like prior to that, he's finished every fighter he's had in the UFC, but the dude lost a round to Mitch Ramirez. He was plus 300 live against Trevin Giles. I mean, him and Radke were having a pretty competitive back and forth until he knocked him out. Now, maybe that'll happen here, and that does scare me because I think Prates does have the heavier hands, and him winning even a moments-based decision or winning a knockout is in play. But I think Garry's a really smart fighter. Like I watch like the Neil fight. Every time Neil would get in tight, Garry would just clinch him up. And that's same thing with MVP, really. That's kind of, what his default is. I do worry he exits really linearly. And like if Prates strings together a combination, Matt said lost trying to Mitch. I believe so. That was my recollection, that he had lost that on the cards, but I could be wrong. But I do think Garry exits linearly and could get himself caught there, but he does fight smart. I mean, look, the guy didn't strike with MVP. He knew what the game assignment was there. With Shavkat, he played it very, very safe, and he actually held his own grappling there. I think he's going to try to point fight Prates here, and I think he's likely to have a fair amount of success with it until and unless he dies. But I just, it was his debut, so I don't want to judge it too harshly. I can't get the Giles fight out of my head, and I can't, I feel like Garry's going to find his shots if he's judicious about them. I did tip. He outlanded. I believe Mitch Ramirez outlanded him a distance in that round, for what it's worth. In the first round of that fight. But yeah, what?
Just for reference, he did lose the first round.
Sorry.
No. Sorry. Like Prates won the first round.
Okay, so I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a very competitive fight. I trust Garry's defense a lot more. I trust his ability to manage distance a lot more. I mean, Prates is defending distance strikes at under 50% so far. So right. Yeah. But like I said, though, I don't think Garry has like a ton of finishing upside here, and he's minus 130, while the goes the distance is plus 180. I'm kind of tempted by that, and I am kind of tempted by the over 2.5 minus 190. So we'll see. I don't really think I know Garry got dropped bad by Kanan Song, but I mean Kanan, that one thing he does well is hit okay. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I lean the Garry side. I tend to think Garry being as battle tested as he is and having a fight with Shavkat, having a fight with Jeff Neal, having a fight with MVP, like those are all, especially MVP, like those are really high level strikers. He's seen a bit of everything. So I lean that side. I trust him more on minutes, to your point, Lags, and I think Prates is going to have a much harder time finding, a home for his power shots than he did earlier. But I like over more. So we'll see what happens, though. I haven't made a decision yet, but this card, I lean Garry, I lean Salmon, Jesus Christ. We need to get back to doing the Sunday nights.
I know.
Not after work days.
Well, you're a little intoxicated after the golf there, John. How about it?
Dude, I was shot on Sunday. We sat out on like the veranda for like 5 hours, and I was like, I think I'm still a little sunburnt right now. So it's been
good.
But yeah, I lean the Garry side. I like the over here as well, though, and I kind of lean that a bit more, both the 2.5 and the GTD. So we'll see. Obviously, I'll post my write-up on Saturday, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, guys, that'll do it for tonight. I wish it was a more entertaining show. This card just not really all that good, in my opinion. Next week's is an interesting one. I've been looking at it a bit.
And we will be back for Sunday next week as well.
We will be back to our regular scheduled program on Sunday. Jesus rose last week, not next week.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully your lag is cleaned up. It was not great tonight, Lags. It's still happening.
I know. It's still. The thing is, too, it's not like I've moved. It's the same place. So I don't know if it's been going on this whole time.
Bro, you need to like sack up and pay for like gigabit internet. Like that's the way.
I just got good internet recently. Well, good enough. I've seen obviously like having some issues here, but on my end, personal life, good internet.
But yeah, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. We'll be back next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. As always, drop a like, subscribe. We'd appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Peace.